Okay guys, what's going on? Seth Chapman here with Living Large and Tiny Living. And I'm a little tired of just doing green screen videos. So I figured I'd change it up a little bit, maybe try and do a vlog style thing. So let's go ahead and get out of here. Whoops, forgot the camera. Let me grab the camera this time. Okay, let's get out of here. Whoa. Where am I? Oh, I'm just here with the chickens. Okay, so, it's a really pretty day out. A little B-roll, intro, whatever you want to call it. Not sure exactly what it is, but here's the reason why I did it. The first reason being y'all getting to kind of see where I'm at, get the atmosphere, and kind of can set the tone for the video. And two, it's going to help me out a lot because I get practice editing and it's a little different than editing video of me just talking, so that's why I'm going to start doing that a little bit more, but that's what I'm doing, that's why it was there, in case you're wondering. But now into the video. What I've kind of come to expect from tiny houses is about 500 pounds per foot. Now that's sort of a guesstimate, so I wouldn't put too much weight behind it. So anyway, yeah, like I was saying, it's a guesstimate, and so it's just kind of a general idea that I've gotten from talking to other people and using my own tiny house as a reference point. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get right into what it is that would cause that to get off a little bit. Alright, so the first thing is just the overall length of the tiny house. So with the longer tiny houses, you're going to be looking at one of two options. The first thing that I've seen with long tiny houses being, say, 26 to 40-ish foot. There's two things that could happen. One is that with all the space that you get in that size of a tiny house, you have a lot of open space that's not taken up by anything, and all you've got for weight there is the floor and the ceiling. So that's the first thing. The other option that can happen with tiny houses is that you have to be kind of aware of is that with that much room and with that larger of a trailer, you're gonna usually have larger axles that can hold a lot more weight. So you might be tempted to put a lot of stuff in the tiny house and really cause that weight to be bumped up a lot. But more than likely, I think when you're going to a larger tiny house, you're probably going to a larger tiny house more for the sake of having open areas, less than cramming it full with extra stuff, because I think that's kind of counterintuitive to the whole tiny house thing. So the next thing that happens with tiny houses is not on the larger end of the tiny house spectrum, but on the tiny houses that are, say, 10 feet to maybe 15 feet. What happens with the smaller tiny houses is that when you're looking at about a 10-foot or so tiny house, one is the axle strength. A lot of times those are built on something similar to a utility trailer, just a small tow-behind trailer. So what happens on those is there's such a small axle, you can't put much weight, so you're forced to make it a much lighter trailer. I think that's the number one cause, but then also is that with the smaller tiny houses, you don't have very much room, and that forces you to use things that are have a lot of purposes. So you might use something that forms a table, a chair, a step stool, and has a lot of different uses. So that cuts down on the weight significantly, because you're no longer having 5 different items for one task, you just have that one thing. And with that, what I've kind of noticed with the smaller tiny houses is that they're not getting over, say, a few thousand pounds at most. Once you get into the larger small tiny houses where you're like 15 to 20 foot, those tend to usually follow that 500 pounds per foot rule. Right, the third type of tiny house that I've noticed kind of breaks that rule is, you're probably going to laugh when I say this, because it's really obvious that this would break the rule. But houses with a lot of concrete in them they have a whole bunch of extra weight, and that really bumps it up over the 500 pounds per foot. You probably wouldn't think that there's that many tiny houses where they put concrete in them, but I did see one with concrete walls and one with concrete floor. Well, they were considering putting in concrete floors, and that was going to add, I believe, a few thousand extra pounds. So anyway, they decided against that one for obvious reasons. But to be quite honest, it probably would have been pretty cool to have concrete floors in a tiny house. Just, you're gonna end up with a huge trailer, and that's not gonna be fun to pull. So, not just concrete though is what will really bump you over. It's any kind of heavy material. So, for instance, in my tiny house I have the sheetrock walls, and my tiny house still follows that 500 pounds per foot rule, but it's also one of the larger tiny houses that has a lot of space in them. So I had the luxury of putting in sheetrock because there was such a big open area for my living room and also study that significantly reduced the weight. But that kind of brings up the point that I would make, where I would say to go ahead and add everything up as best you possibly can beforehand, because I was expecting a little lighter trailer than I actually got. I had a little sturdier axles than I expected I would need. So you want to add up everything you've got in your tiny house as best you can beforehand, so then that way you know how much your tiny house is going to weigh, if your axles will hold it, and if your vehicle will pull it. So that's about it for this video, but I hope that helps. Maybe you learned something. If you know of any other instances where that rule doesn't apply, or if you've seen that rule work time and time again, or whatever the case is, go ahead and put that down in the comments. I can learn something, other viewers can learn something. So go ahead and stick that down in the comments. That'll help us all out. If you liked the video, go ahead and hit like. You can hit subscribe for future videos that'll be coming out. But that's about it. So I'll catch you on the next video.